Hi, greetings, One Drop. How are you doing? Welcome.
Greetings, everyone. Um, we're just putting a few things in place, but we are here, ready to begin, ready to make a start.
Yes, so this will be our first live session, and we're going to see how well it goes. Hopefully, we can interact with those who are coming in and sharing their ideas. Before that, we were premiering, so we could not engage as much as we would have liked to. So this evening, today, we have a unique opportunity to engage the conversation that you guys will be having in the chat. So welcome once again to another episode of Muziq Mind. I think with the title, you would notice that we will be discussing sex education, the responsibility of the church when it comes to sex and society as a whole, and also music and the impact music has on the way we view sex and sexuality.
Indeed, indeed. How did we come about with this topic? I mean, we always chill and we just speak about different issues, and we realize, even being in the church, this is one of the topics that is like a taboo. Who teaches it? Who has the right to teach sexual education to our children, your children? Who has the right to teach it? What way is the best way? Is it correct in the way that the school teaches it, society teaches it? Our parents are afraid to teach it. So we decided that we will engage this topic today, and what better time to try it out on a live, where we could get comments from different persons coming in, you know.
All right, for those of you who do not know me, I am Shakiner Meluce.
And I am Shem Meluce.
Okay, so we see Anson Ismail here. Welcome, Anson. It's such a pleasure to have you join us on this episode of Muziq Mind. So, as always, we try to integrate music into what we're doing, and we noticed even in our prior discussions that music has a major part to play in how young people and even adults view sex and sexuality on a whole. So, I mean, we won't be sharing any music of that sort here, but from what I have been exposed to with especially secular music, there is a lot of vulgarity and there is a lot of explicit sex talk in those songs. And sad enough, we have young people who dance to those music and enjoy that kind of music. I'm not sure if it is a case of ignorance or if it is a case where they simply do not pay attention to the words that the music is presenting, but they are dancing to music that seems to be very demeaning. So what do you think? What do you think about this?
Let me say, she said secular music, and I want to say it in a different way. I also believe there's secular music based on the church perspective, secular and gospel music. However, we have persons out there, whether we deemed it as secular, that would release very good content, what would call inspirational, positive music, because the message in itself speaks about upliftment. But we understand that we have a culture that is devoted with sexual explicit content. And it would be nice, well, not really, but to have some kind of stuff here where we could play part of it, where you could see what reveling is, where you could see what gyration is. And this is one of the things that music tend to do, the music of that sort that we deem as secular, that is sexual in nature, both in the content and the expression of it. So yes, I want to say that music is a powerful tool, and it is powerful so much so that person act based on what they hear.
Yes.
And even what they see, they practice it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to say that we tend to have something against certain kinds of dancing, and I do not necessarily hold that perspective that, you know, if you wind down that it is wrong. I think we as an African people, we could dance and we could dance. I have seen people dance. I mean, if you look at the way people dance even in Africa towards to even gospel music, the whole idea is the thought behind it. And it is a natural thing for us to dance and move and move well. Once you could do it and you do it right, I don't see an issue with it. However, my issue is when the content that we're dancing to is demeaning and exposes very sexually explicit, you know, messages. So that is my issue.
All right, so you brought about something practical there. And yes, dancing is an expression, but we want to go into the topic for today. And the topic of today, even though we spoke about music and its influences, we really want to talk about sex education. And I was asking her maybe even earlier and during the week, and here's a question that I have there. Where should children first encounter sexual education?
That is a very interesting question. I think in our culture, sex is a very taboo topic. I was listening just a few days ago to, I think it is Inola Pictures, where there is Miss Mathre and her son Kennedy with Kina. I just want to big them up as we mentioned them. They had a very interesting topic, and they exposed how taboo sex can be. And I do agree with that. The fact of the matter is, because sex is so taboo in our society, we tend not to engage it the way we should. And so, oftentimes, the first place of education, which is the home, children are not exposed to sex in a healthy way, even in that first institution. So yes, we have that. I also think we should engage sexual education in the church, especially in the church, because we have an expectation, the church has an expectation of individuals when it comes to sexuality, sexual engagement, sexual purity. So we have the home, which I think is very paramount. We have the church, which I think is also paramount. And we also have the school. I think the school has, to a certain extent, been exposing children to sex education. I do not know if there is a standard. I don't think there is a standard, but I think in their own way, each school has exposed children to some level of sexual education.
Okay, so basically you have mentioned, is it three of them? So you said the home, you also said the church and the school. So you have mentioned three entities basically that children would have either been brought up in or raised around, and you suggest that those are the platforms where sex education can be taught. But posing the question directly to you, which one would you suggest would be the highest priority, or would be the most preferred one as the start of a child's sexual education?
I think first and foremost, the child should be exposed to sexual education in the home. And the reason I think so is because, one, the home is very sacred. And when the child leaves the home, the child is exposed to so much out there. And we need to begin to sensitize our children to let them know that certain things are okay, certain things are not okay. And when they get into other institutions like the church, then these things should be reinforced. Like the school, these things should be reinforced. But if it is not engaged within the home and it is left solely to other external institutions, I think this is a disservice to the child, because if the child were to be exposed to those things, what would the child do? If the child is exposed to inappropriate touching, inappropriate behavior by someone else, who?
I like this. So you emphasizing that children should really be taught the first set of sex education in the home.
In the home.
And I agree with that. I agree with that totally. But I also have a question that I want to pose. Just before I do that, let me just say welcome, Ryan Charles, One Drop, Vivita, SF Rose. Just thank you all for being here. Catherine Alexander Uzelta, blessings to all of you all. Anson again. So we thank you for coming in. So moving back into topic, I agree for sure that the home is the first place. But what about those homes that we have that are unsafe? We have issues like that in the society, in the world that we live, where the environment at home is unsafe. And would we expect an unsafe home to have the capability of raising a child in a way that is morally correct or morally sound? What do you think?
That is interesting. It is a sad reality. The sad thing about it is we do have those things that exist within our society. It is very sad that a home is not a safe place for a child. We would want to believe that every home is safe for the child, but that is not necessarily the case as you have presented. But in such a case, that is where the church comes in, and that is where the school comes in. But I believe first and foremost that it should be at home. In the absence of a safe, conducive home where that kind of discussion can be engaged with a child at the appropriate level, then the next appropriate place would be at church or at the school. That would be my position.
Okay, wonderful, very wonderful. We have there on the chat, Minister Stricker, blessings, my brother, thanks for being here. The Tiara Show, we welcome you here. Seven Kings Radio again. So Anson has posted something there and he said, he agrees, I agree in the home, but I have questions. At what age should you recommend sex education in the home? Now, beautiful Anson, it's like you're reading what I have there, because this was also a question that I had in my stuff right here. So because Anson has brought this up, we will speak about this thing and find out. We have established, or we didn't establish that, but we are proposing that the best place to start this would be at home.
Right.
Okay, wonderful. So we suggest home, but we also recognize that you could also do that in the church. The church is also a family that can and that should teach sex education, and we also know the school. So let's go back to the question, and I will read it from Anson. At what age would you recommend sex education in the home?
I think as soon as the child has an understanding of right and wrong, that child should be exposed to sex education. Now, I do not say that to suggest that you start speaking very explicitly on what sex is and all of those things, but there is a way that you should go about it. First and foremost, the child is young. The child will be hugging people. People will be touching the child and that kind of thing. So you want to expose the child to what is good and what is bad touch. I think that would suffice for a child who is beginning to understand good and bad. As the child gets older and progresses in age, gets into adolescence and so on, you change it a little bit and you start to introduce a little more detail and a little more explicit information there. But as soon as the child can understand right from wrong, you need to be able to develop that camaraderie with your child to say, my daughter, my son, this is good, this is bad. You will do it in an interactive way. You know your child. You will be able to, hopefully you will be able to engage that discussion in a very interactive way, in a very jovial way, and also in a way that is not, too crazy for that child. But you also need to be open with the child if the child asks questions. Now, some children will ask certain questions that other children will not ask, and you need to be honest as much as possible at their level. One thing that comes to mind as we say that is, a lot of children ask, where do babies come from? And many parents that have encountered, they tend to say that children come from the sky, they fall from the sky, or some crazy analogy, just to avoid going into all of that sex talk. The truth of the matter is that children are exposed to more than we think they are exposed to once they get out of the home. And sometimes what they learn outside of the home does not necessarily come back into the home, if you understand what I'm saying. So a lot of the things that they learn outside, they keep it outside. And they may ask a few questions and hint a few things, but don't go into the detail of what they have heard outside, although some might. And this means that when the question comes up, there is something that has been triggered, and their curiosity has been triggered in some way to generate that kind of question.
Wonderful, beautifully said. Minister Straker said on here, there should be the use of discernment based on the child's development, and we understand that for
Right.
sure. You could look at various theories who propose, like Erickson, who proposed the stages of development. You also have some other guys, Freud, and all of them, they propose it. We're not saying to necessarily follow the principle, but there is some truth and some light in what they propose within psychology. However, you spoke about a lot of things, and you said we need to engage and speak to them in terms that they could understand.
Right.
Speak to them age appropriate.
Right.
Yes.
That is
And
the correct.
sometimes we also want to use the correct words. We have some fake things using and making it look some kind of strange thing. But we have to be honest. We have to be discerning and use it correctly. I also want to make mention of something. There seems to be a notion, and that is just something that is natural, that we try as much as possible to protect our females more than the males. And I want us maybe to just speak a little bit on that, or to sensitize persons, to let them know that the boys and the girls are that of the same, and they should be treated sacred as one or the other.
I have always had an issue with that. One of the major issues with this is where it comes to emotions and the differences between women and men, and that boils down to the same thing. Our boys are as much at risk as our girls. and we have to bear that in mind. It is not because it is a boy that the boy will not be exposed to sexual violation and that kind of thing. So there are a lot of boys, and because of how we have showcased men, boys tend not to come forward with certain things that they have experienced, and that is very dangerous because we have this is not the time and place to bring down homosexuality or anything of that sort, but I just want to mention one common theme that I have noticed. A lot of those who move towards homosexuality, when they share their stories, if you listen carefully, you would recognize that these men have experienced some kind of sexual violation at some point in their lives. And if we neglect to enforce the same measure of sexual education on boys as we do on girls, then we continue to have issues of that sort. And it is not only homosexuality that might be the result, it might also be other things like depression, anxiety, and all sorts of other mental illness. So we have to be careful not to separate the two. You have a boy, and I must comment, Anson, he mentioned that he started telling his son about those things about 2 years or so.
Yeah.
It is very commendable because the boys need this information as much as the girls. And also, boys need to understand, as we develop in age and we get into manhood and womanhood, the boys tend to have society tend to have a little more tolerance on the boys when it comes to expressing their sexuality. But boys, if they have been taught and trained properly from as early as our brother Anson has been doing, they would also understand their responsibility to protect their sexuality and to engage in safe sexual conduct to also protect the female and her sexuality.
All right, wonderful. So here we have it. So we are talking about sex education, and this is another episode of Muziq Mind where we present social issues. And as we speak a little more about this, we have said that we believe, or we have proposed that the first place that a child should experience sex education should be in the family.
Right.
We have also mentioned that while we understand that it is the family that is recommended from us, not all families are safe. And because all families are not safe, we don't have everyone with proper sound mind, with sound morality, and different things of that sort. We have also proposed another family, which is the church family.
Right.
Now I want to say, and it's not anything bashing, but we just want to speak about the reality. I know there are churches that do it, churches that don't do it, but churches are very careful in how they deal with various topics. For the church really is spiritually focused, so it's about the spiritual aspect of man and about salvation. While I understand that, I always make a statement that goes like this, that the spiritual man lives within a physical human being, and if you are affected physically, it will affect you spiritually, and if you are affected spiritually, there is no way it will not affect you physically. While we understand that sin is what propels or causes every kind of disruption that we have, humanly speaking, we also recognize that the church has a part to play in it. So I was saying about the church, one of the things that I recognize, you have to graduate to a certain age. And I mean, Minister Straker spoke about what is an age-appropriate time. Well, Anson asked that, but he spoke about discernment as it pertains to a child. But one of the things I realized, like I was saying, about the church setting is that most of the time they really want to speak to you when they believe that you are prepared to hear it.
But when are you prepared to hear it?
I think one of the things that I recognize this based on age appropriate things. For example, we would be probably go to a couple's function when we are married versus when we were dating. And you might not be qualified to go to a family function or a couple's function because you are not yet legally married. But here's one of the things that I want to say. I want to say that children live within a family. And because children live within a family, they understand family dynamics. They also understand sexuality. But what we don't want is for children to learn sexual things the wrong way. Through peer groups, and that has its background again going to the foundation of whatever peer that would badly influence them. They could even learn it through the kind of houses that we have. If we have houses that are not secure, children could experience and see things that they should not see. And that could influence them again, and that could misguide them. So people, we are speaking about sexual issues, and we are now going into the aspect of the church. But feel free to also comment in the chat, saying out your questions, and we will try to engage it. You may give your answers as well, because we don't propose to have the answers, but we are just reasoning about topics that are there, issues that are there, that we feel led that needs to be addressed as we live as people. So carry on and give your views as it relates to the church and sex education.
I think the church, sadly, in as much as the church presents sex as something that is very good within marital bounds, the church has a very taboo outlook on sex. I think the only way the church exposes sex is when it comes to issues of purity, encouraging individuals to remain sexually pure before marriage, and discouraging any sexual activity before marriage. And when marriage comes, that is the time they would start to speak about it a little more freely. And I say a little more because I don't think the church truly engages sex holistically even after marriage. That is very sad, I must admit, because we are all sexual beings. It might be hard for persons to hear that, but we are sexual beings. It is a natural human response. It is a natural human thing to engage in sex. And if we do not engage in sex, if we do not have the desire to engage in sex, that is a problem even in itself. So we have to be careful. And I want to mention that even within my studies, I did some research on sexual dysfunction. And what was found, quite interestingly, is that a lot of people who are experiencing sexual dysfunctions of a variety of kinds, they tend to have a spiritual background. And a spiritual background where sex is, something that they should refrain from. So when they engage, or when they desire to engage in sexual activity, there is a point where their brains have so been used to keeping away from sex that they don't function as they should. And it is a very sad reality, but that is the truth about it. And for us to deal with that, the church needs to be more open about sex and sex education. We need to find ways to engage sex education. The other thing is, we also have persons within the church who end up having children and are not married at all. And I think that shows a flaw in the way in which the church goes about teaching sexual education, or maybe not teaching the sexual education.
I see our brother Anson said something there, and he says, normally, the church normally looks at sex education as the act. Now that is very deep, because we're talking now about the completion of that whole thing. It has already gone into doing. And what we are saying now, or what we need to bring forward, is that sex education is to have discussion, to be schooled, to be taught about whatever it is. Say a man wants to be a musician. You have to go through the steps, learn this, learn scales, learn chords, learn progressions, learn all of those things, and then you will become a musician. So this question, well, this statement that was proposed there is a deep one, and I think we need to be more proactive. Like I said earlier, most times the church does not see themselves as a school for that. Though sometimes you hear statements like, we are the hospital, and we are things like that. And sometimes it's from a perspective where we deal with the spiritual aspect, and it should solve the physical. And that is all right, that is okay. But we should also engage persons in that as well. Officer Al-Jani. So, greetings, thanks for being here. But again, we are speaking about sex education, a social issue, and when is it safe, or when is the right time for a child to be taught sex education?
I think, well, from what I have experienced within the church, there are various church groups there are various church groups, one, where age-appropriate sex education can be engaged, and even during Sunday school sessions, during Sunday school, there are separations. So there is a children section, a particular age group, there's the youth, there's the younger, the adults, there's the older adults, and so forth. And so I think if those separations have been made, then there should not be an issue or problem when it comes to presenting those issues, because everyone within that group would have a specific age, and these topics can be engaged on their level. So you will not have children engaging in more mature things when adults, just as adults might be. Yeah. So there could be a separation. So I don't think there is an excuse for the church where that is concerned. But again, it is important that the church recognizes that it is not only when you get to a point of marriage that it is okay, or that it is the right time to engage sexual education. Because this individual, say a particular individual waits until he or she is 40 years to engage to engage the partner and get married. What kind of lifestyle would the church want to encourage that person to live prior to that time? And speaking solely concerning purity is so abstract. Sometimes it is just all up in the air. Yes, we speak about sexual purity, we speak about abstinence and that kind of thing. But one thing I've recognized with young people is, when you tell young people do not engage in something, this propels them even more to desire to engage in that particular activity. So we have to be careful to strike a balance where the balance is necessary.
I agree. I'm looking at a comment from Minister Stricker, and he said, I believe that especially in the Caribbean, parents downplay the importance of introducing this conversation and this has caused a generation of young people to get caught up in negative experiences. Now, this is a profound statement, and I think it could extend a little more to the world. But yes, parents don't play the importance of introducing this conversation. They shun it away. Just imagine, even some females, we could go, and I'm thinking now why maybe there is a bigger interest when it comes to females. There is the menstrual cycle of females that most of them, all of them should go through, right? And there is no escaping that. A child, a female, need to be educated about that. Not just because she's bleeding or anything like that, but because if she engaged in getting that experience, that negative experience, as Minister Straker mentioned, pregnancy could come out of that. You're talking about diseases, you're talking about all of those things. And some of them, and in the Caribbean, we have that liberty to discipline, and what we tend to do, instead we instruct before what we do.
Reactive.
Yeah, we react, and we use sticks, we use whips, and we beat people up to make sense, like to put the sense into them later when it's already too late, but we never taught them that in the initial stage. So we are saying that we need to initiate the conversation as parents. Parents need to initiate the conversation, and again, Minister Straker said it must be done with discernment.
Right.
So we have to be age appropriate, give the information to persons based on, give children a plate of food that is a child plate of food. Give to adults adult plates of food. And so this is what we are saying here. And also some parents take a standoffish attitude towards these topics, therefore creating fear in the children to approach the Yes, with this conversation.
Minister Straker, you have struck it right on the head. It is so true. I don't know what is wrong with some of us, some parents. And maybe I do know. It is a generational thing, because if I were to go to my grandmother to engage such a discussion, my grandmother would totally ignore me. She will not take this on. And again, even with some of their experiences, some of them have experienced rape, some of them have experienced so many things that their children don't even know about. And so they go on about it very rigidly, trying to prevent their children to encounter those things, but not being forward and forefront with their own experiences that would charge them towards discipline in a particular way. This is very bad, and for the parents who might be hearing this, who might be listening to this later on, remember, if you do not want your child to experience those things that you did experience, it is important that you share those experiences with them. They're not going to look at you in any strange way. They're going to learn from your experience. And if you are bold enough to share and say, this is what I experienced. I had a child of 10 different men, and so this is why you have different siblings, and I would not like that to happen to you. These are the hardships that I faced as a result of those decisions. Maybe the decision was not even mine. Maybe I was sold off by my parent, or maybe things were so hard and I ended up doing those things, and I do not want that for you, and so I want you to focus on your education, focus on those things. There's a logical way to do it, and a lot of the time parents have experiences that they can share with their children to help them to make better decisions. But they take it so rigidly, and they present it, or they do not present it at all, and that in itself can cause the children to not feel free to come to them and expose. Maybe somebody touched them inappropriately, or maybe they liked the feeling that came with the touching, and so they feel, okay, I'm not going to tell my mommy that, because if my mommy knows that this boy touched me and I liked it and whatever, they're going to beat me up. But that is an opportunity to engage a discussion in a whole different direction.
Wonderful. So we have something there. Anson said it may be as a result of how the parents were raised. So again, you see social learning is brought into play there. I teach what I know and all of those kinds of things. But here's an interesting thing from One Drop. He has a question and he said, should the church go back to old school for teenagers? Chaperone for dating. Whoa, what do you say about this? Because I have something to speak about that. So hold on, my brother. Go ahead. Let's.
I think that is a very good idea, but there needs to be a prerequisite, and I'll tell you why I say that. Many times, I experienced it. You've gone through your life in the church, you've done everything, nobody cares about you. And the moment you present someone or the moment you show an interest in someone, people tend to come to you, and they don't come in the right way. It is important for you to establish relationship with young people, especially young people. Young people, they have a mind of their own. The way they operate, they can be very suspicious of people, and the truth is they recognize things more than adults give them credit for. And so the church needs to ensure, and that is not only for young people, that is for people on the whole, ensure you develop relationship. There was a time when relationship was something very, very dear to the church, and I don't know if that time has passed or if it will come back or whatever the case may be. But it is important for us to come to a place where we understand we are each other's keepers, we are here for each other, and we should not be in some sort of competition or trying to bring each other down or trying to find fault with someone, or if someone comes to us and presents something or we see something happening, that we use that as a time to laugh or a time to say, you know what, I knew this and I knew that. This, we have to understand, if this is to be effective, and I think it can be very effective, this is where accountability comes in. It can be effective. However, for it to be effective, the responsibility is on those older to develop relationship even before that kind of thing presents itself.
Wonderful. So we touch a little bit on dating there right now. But I like this. I have a principle as it relates to dating. Because earlier we spoke about the counseling aspect of marriage. That is the only time you really hear something concrete about sexuality and how should one conduct themselves and all of those things. Here's one of the theories or one of the things that I propose as one having a little background in guidance and counseling. So here's one of the things that I propose normally. We have a concept of this whole counseling, which is sexual education for persons of the church. But that's during the time when they are about to get married. Some persons don't go through that, but we're talking about persons within the church. So there is maybe a 6-week period or a 2 months period or 3 weeks period of which persons get some intense yet mild training or coaching about what you should go through for marriage. But here's my we will read the scripture from Minister Straker soon. So here's my take on this. I believe premarital counseling should be something that is ongoing in the life of the church. By that I am saying the topics that we get 3 weeks before the wedding or 4 weeks or 4 months before the wedding should be part of the teachings of the church. You should know that so well, it should be embedded in you, that you just understand the philosophies, the methodologies, the ideologies. It must be in you. So with me saying that, my whole point is, I meet you, and I just believe that I love you. what I should aspire, or my intention should be to take you to my leader and say, listen, I'm feeling this girl, you know. Now, that's providing she feels the same about me, because I can't just take her and she does not have any intention. But we both have this mutual vibe, this mutual connection. So what we do, we go to our leader, and counseling starts from there. So our counseling deals with finances, it deals with sex, it deals with anger problems, it deals with our future. Are you career-based? Do you have a focus? So our counseling then starts from when we believe we love each other till death. But then, going through counseling at that time can do two things. It could solidify things and make you see that, yeah, that is the girl, that is the guy. I could work through that. That kind of commitment she has, that kind of thing, I could work with that. Or you could immediately realize that, man, you think I will be able to work with a woman that making more money than me? And then you start to realize that simple things will bother you. But you have gotten to know that at an early stage, a stage that is fresh, where you have not done anything, anything that could put your heart in some turmoil. So I'm proposing that. I was just saying that based on my brother One Drop question. But he asked a question: should one only date then when one is ready for marriage? Well, I think I was actually answering that question, because what I was saying is, as soon as you have an idea, but again, that has to do with accountability, it has to do with relationships and how it is taught. So as soon as you believe that you love this person and this person reciprocate that same thing, you go to a leader with accountability that you can, and relate everything to them, and that person starts counseling you from then, teach you the principles. So you could be 16, 17, 18. At that time, you may realize, man, I'm not even ready for that thing. That thing is more serious than I think, because it's not just about sex and sleeping and all that thing. So you recognize that at that age. So, but the child must have that sex education or that holistic life education to realize that I need guidance at any point in my life so that I could move forward.
Well, I think it is important for us to socialize. I think there is such a great emphasis on not having sex before marriage, that everybody wants to try and see if they can lock down somebody and to get married. And I think the church tends to have a lot of young people getting married. This is not good, this is not bad, but not always good at the same time, because there needs to be a level of maturity. And to answer your question, One Drop, if we encourage socialization, and if we educate our young people, or our young people about sexuality, sexual education, about purity and why they should remain pure and all of those things, the only time they should be dating is for marriage. They can engage in all sorts of social activity. For example, there are several churches on island. There are churches all over the world. There could be times where people can come together, have a good time. But the focus should not be trying to hook up with this person and trying to be with this person or that person. You could have a very close friendship with someone, and that may lead to marriage. But if you are not ready, and ready in the sense you are not financially able to sustain a marriage, and not only a marriage, with marriage there comes a possibility of childbearing. If you are not in a position to entertain a child, properly rear a child, financially sustain a child, then you should not be engaging in dating just for the purpose of dating, because that comes desires. You will be so all intertwined with this person emotionally that you would want to engage in things that you should only engage in while you are married. So I would caution that if you are not prepared for marriage emotionally, financially, psychologically, and all the alleys, then I do not prescribe dating unless you are married. However, I encourage as much social interactions as possible with as many people as possible. Again, when you interact with many people, you tend to get a feel of a variety of personalities, and you tend to learn about yourself as much as you learn about others. So you see, this person behaves that way, and this is something I totally cannot tolerate. And it is not something that you look, it is not because you like this person, but just because you are in the environment with this person, it brings an awareness to you. That is not something that I really like. But you could tolerate that person as a friend, but you would start to think, okay, this cannot be someone I will engage in a marital affair with.
Yes. We just want to say thank you very much, Minister Straker. I read the scripture, therefore, since through God's mercies we have this ministry, we do not lose hope. And he's saying, praise God, this is your ministry and your time. So we give thanks for the support in that way. We want to say thanks to persons who are there in the chat making it active and just acknowledging what is taking place. Yes, Anson also said, yes, most times when one goes to marriage counseling, they already have their own ideologies. And that is not a surprise, because you have persons, they know what they want, and they are just, they already have what they want, and they are going in and just seal that deal. So very correct. I see Clint Jules here. Thank you very much for coming. And he said, amen, Shem, on the direction of constant and identity if we are truly ready for marriage. Mm-hmm. So as you could see, we are talking about sex education, presenting social issues, and we started with the influence of negative music. To those who believe in good music and bad music. So there is what we call negative music. I will not just say secular, but because persons out there have positive uplifting music. So I want to say negative music. Music that is sexual, that brings a vibe of gyration and all of that kind of thing. So we have that. We started with that. Then we spoke about when is the ideal time for a child to be taught sex education. Right. Where should it be taught? Should it be in the family? Should it be in the church? Should it be in the school? Who has priority? And we advocate, or we suggested that the family is the best place, because I think it is the first place. Yes. And that should be the place where it should start ultimately. We have moved on to the church, and we highlighted some things, and we said that the church is not specialized in that, so they say, but we are admonishing for them to at least, do a little more in that regard and teach sex education from a perspective, because we have such a strong vibe where we spoke about sexual purity and all of that thing. Persons cannot just know that off the bat. So be proactive in teaching what we want them to know, what we want them to learn. We cannot allow another to teach it for us. So we are saying to the church, let's teach it, and let's teach the youth and teach even the adults to exhibit self-control and do all of that. So we are talking about sex education. And then we moved on and we spoke about dating. When should you date? How should you date? Who should you date? And it went into constant. And yes, that's where Clint gave the encouragement. And yes, so we're saying constant should start earlier than it normally begins. Yes. So we say it should be the life of the church. It should be part of what we go through as humanity. You need to always be taught life skills. It's just just like saying, make your food your diet, or make your medicine your food. Don't make your food medicine when you are sick. But if you eat medicine as your food, you will be healthy. So this is what we're saying.
I see Vermont.
Yes.
See Vermont Paint is saying music is from the soul. It should never be negative. I agree. Music is from the soul. But what we're highlighting here is there, especially with St. Lucia, especially in St. Lucia, we have a lot of young people, and I must applaud them. They are very talented in what they do. However, the issue that we present is there is a lot of vulgarity that is presented in that music, and I think one of our politicians mentioned censoring some of those songs so that they can be aired, and I think this is a bit ridiculous because there is positive music out there, and positive music that can really keep someone, that could have someone to introspect and to think about things in a very positive way. But the focus with them is to censor.
Yeah, to make a clean version of dirty music.
To make a clean version of dirty music. Why not just focus on positive music in the first place? Yeah. But the issue is a lot of the music that is presented by some of our youth, it talks a lot towards sexuality, sexual perversion, and it highlights a lot that should not be highlighted. So you hear songs talk about a woman in a very negative way, but
the women are dancing it.
The women are dancing to it. And I'm not sure if the issue is just because the rhythm is good, the music itself is good, that they don't focus on the words, because trust me, they are very catchy. But the words are important, and we need to have whatever we take in. I think we were listening to TR yesterday, and someone mentioned that, and she said whatever we take in is our food.
I think it's Lockhart's perspective.
Lockhart perspective, and she made a very solid point, and I agree with that. If we're taking in those kinds of music, then that is the kind of behavior we will see in our society. And it is important for us to take in what is good so that we could give out what is good. If you cannot be feeding yourself trash and expect to be totally healthy.
So yes, definitely Vermont Pen, she said, Vermont Pen said, yes, music is from the soul. It should never be negative. And yes, we should always try to make positive music. Right. It's just unfortunate that persons make negative music. And how you say words can heal the world in part. So yes, words definitely are powerful, and we should use the words to do a lot and do the positive aspect of things. And so yes, Minister Straker said, as Christian, we must expect this. That's why we are not of this world. Great topic and discussion. Thank you very much, my brother. And this is true. We must not be walking in this world thinking as if it will be all right. But we just want to make sure that we could, anyone that is on the edge, that we could still pull them in and put them on the right track. So yes, definitely, my brother, we do agree that persons, we will encounter those things, and this is a reality. So we have one more aspect of this topic that we just want to touch base on, because we have a lot of stuff there, but we'll not be able to go into that in full details. Those things will come in subsequent episodes. But remember, we mentioned 3 of them, and we have not spoken about the school system. And the school system is one of the systems that help in educating our children. It helped educate me. It must have helped educate a lot of us. But I will give you my little experience about some of the ways sex education was taught. Because remember, sex education, from a perspective as we would call it secular, or it's very neutral. And in the inception, like in the early days, you will be taught what is called the good touch, the bad touch, when not to allow persons to touch you versus where it's okay. And it missed a few things, but this was what was taught. And if you went through it well, it could help you as a child. However, as you get older, you go into high school, you're now 14, 15, and ages like that where your emotions are heightened, all those neurons in your brain start kicking in, and you are, it's electric sparks. The education changed during that time, and it does not speak, some persons will teach it, it does not necessarily speak to abstinence, but it speaks to protection, and then the introduction of the use of contraceptives, condoms, and all of those things were introduced when you get to that age. So what you recognize is that we're asking the question, who should teach our children sex education? Is it the parents? Is it the church? Is it the school? Oh yes, yeah, hormones in the brain. Yes, it is. Well, we wanted to go, yeah, well, it's sparking all of those things. But the hormones in the brain. So yes, but definitely. So we see what is happening in the school. And I'm not saying that what the school is teaching is bad. There's a syllabus and there's all of that thing. And again, we have various teachers. So some teachers teach it like they are teaching the children. So they teach you abstinence, they teach you to refrain. Others teach you very openly so that you, if you are doing it, just protect yourself. So.
I think every institution, we mentioned the home, the family, which is one institution, the church, which is another institution, and the school, which is another institution. Every institution has its place. It has its place, and I think each place is important.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think so. It would be a bit hypocritical to totally neglect, and I know we like to bring the spiritual aspect of it as much as possible. The church would encourage abstinence simply because we do not want a case where you engage in sexual activity before you are married. But I think it is a bit hypocritical to ignore the fact that we do have persons who do engage in sexual activity even while in the church. And so, while that should not be in the forefront, I think it should also be, just as the school is doing, also be an option that is presented to persons within the church, because we understand that certain things will happen. We understand that there have been in the past people who have presented with diseases, people who have presented with babies and all sorts of things, and only if they had the knowledge of contraceptive, that would have been avoided. And that could be controversial, I understand that, but it is important. And it goes even further. I remember there was a couple. These people had kept themselves, remained pure, totally pure, had not engaged in sex before marriage. However, when they got to finally experience it, bam, there was a child. So a child comes when they feel they should be enjoying themselves and enjoying their marriage. They are presented with a child, and right away morning sickness kicks in, and all the hormones kick in, and all of those things, and they are not ready for a child. And it is not to say that they're doing a very good job in taking care of the child, but they would have been in a better position had they had all the information regarding contraceptive. So it is not entirely wrong, and it is not even to say go on, do your thing and use contraceptive. It is also to educate people in a way that is holistic and not to just present a part or a portion of the information. We have to be true, we have to be real. And like you said earlier, we are spiritual beings living in a physical experience, and we cannot neglect the physical even though our focus is spiritual. The spiritual affects the physical and the physical affects the spiritual. So we have to ensure that whatever we present at every institution, especially the church, that we present it holistically and not just focusing on sin and focusing on just that this is wrong and you should not do this, but there is no what you should do in case of this.
Yeah. So we have to present a holistic package to deal with the entire human being. So today, everyone, we have been speaking about sex education. We presented this social issue today, and we spoke a lot about, first of all, we spoke about the music. We also spoke about who should teach the child, who has priority, or where first the child should learn about sex education. Now, as we said, the truth is, we really cannot take on this entire topic because it could go into how many various subtopics. But we were happy that we could engage this today and have your participation. And so I just want to take some time really to just go through the chat and just say thanks to One Drop. I know One Drop, it's late where he is at the moment, but I want to thank him for dropping by. SF Rose, happy that you dropped by, and I will be dropping by later to check out what's happening with you. Catherine Alexander, Seven Kings Radio, Vivita Walker, The TR Show, Minister Stricker, Anson, thanks for coming. I know there are a lot more persons that did not really speak in the chat, but we are happy. Officer Ajahani, I know you make mention about black men and black girls, beauty and white, and the truth of the matter is there is no discrimination when it comes to black and white. I have sisters who are, well, I am black, I have black sisters who are married to white spouses, so it's a one love and it's a one unity. So you may see me with a white niece, and I tell you this is my niece, and you may be surprised, but it's true. We have mingled in the world so nicely, and this is what God wants. Like we said, God has created only one race. We have just divided ourselves in our minds, but we are one race, and that's evident. So we want to thank everyone for just being here. Vermont Paint, for supporting this mission, supporting this whole vibe where we engage the mind. We speak about issues that take place in our society, in the world, and with humanity on the whole. Airport representative, thank you for being there. We appreciate that. We appreciate you for being here. I want to say something. You definitely will say something, but I want to say we're in a period where pandemic, and I want to tell everyone to keep safe out there. There are various protocols that we could go through and just follow them and try and keep safe as much as possible. We have a rise in St. Lucia as it relates to, we were pretty safe for the past few weeks, and we just got a sudden blow. So people just keep safe out there, and my wife is going to say a few things as we try to bring this episode of Muziq Mind to a close until next week.
Well, I would like to say thank you to all of you in the chat who engaged the discussion. I think I have enjoyed this episode even more than the previous episodes just because of your interaction. This is our first live, and I think we're going to continue with the live as much as as much as we can. Joni, airport representative is Joni. Hi, Joni.
And my sister is right there.
Yes.
She has my surname.
Yes,
People
Joni. So hi.
Two of them.
Cindy, it is really nice to have you. And everybody else, I think we missed Anson. Was it Anson? You mentioned Anson and Clint, hi, how are you? SF Rose, Tia, we will be checking you out a little later. But I just want to encourage all of us to be safe, like my husband said, be safe in this period of pandemic. Keep the protocols. I know in some states they have instituted some legal repercussions for not following protocol. Even us, yes, in St. Lucia, we do have fines that we will be charged with if we do not follow protocol, but do follow protocol. On that topic, I think we cannot really do justice to such a topic. It is so far, vast and wide. So we just always, as always on Muziq Mind, we just want to touch on, try to stir up the discussion, try to bring people to a place of reflection and thought, introspective thought, and hopefully that will stir up discussion not only here with us, but also in your homes, in your families, and even in your churches. These are important discussions to have, healthy discussions to have, and so we really enjoy the fact that we could present them to you and to engage it in the way that we do. Of course, we like to engage music. My husband is a musician and music is all around me, so we engage music on Muziq Mind with every topic that we have. We may not present music, but we will also show how music is intersecting with all of the social issues that we have. So thank you once again for joining us here, and hope to see you again next week on Sunday with another episode of Muziq Mind.
Thank you very much for being there. Blessings to you, Zelta. Really nice having you. So until we meet again, keep safe, protect yourself, keep your immune system healthy, and be peaceful. Blessings.